You're listening to 105.3, The Gerblin, Dominaria's #1 music source for generic goblin noise.
Hey gang, just to let you know, you can now use the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, at flipsidegaming.com and originalmagicart.store. Using the code gets you 10% off orders $10 or more, and you get to help out the channel at the same time. Also, just so you know, all orders over $10 or more until January 28th, 2019 at 11:59 p.m. will be entered to win their chance at a Ravnica Allegiance booster box. It's one entry per person, so good luck and be sure to let me know what you open. Today's game is another gruesome twosome, that means 2 games stuck into one. I am playing my Vial and Tymna deck in the first game, keeping a Swamp, Phyrexian Arena, Temple of Silence, Foreboding Ruins, Talisman of Indulgence, Beseech the Queen, and Painful Truths. Matt is playing his Super Sign of the Ur-Dragon deck, keeping Wooded Foothills, Steam Vents, Plains, Mountain, Bloodstained Mire, Rites of Replication, and Urza's Incubator. Mike is playing his Kynaios and Tiro deck, keeping Command Tower, Steam Vents, Cinder Glade, Irrigated Farmland, One Volley Acid Moss, Hunting Wilds, and Coalition Relic. And not only are you getting 2 games, you're getting 2 Vial Smasher decks in the first one, with Trevor playing his Vial Smasher and Ikra deck. He keeps a Woodland Cemetery, Farseek, Scour Tribe Elder, Rites of Flourishing, Foreboding Ruins, and Canyon Slough. Matt wins the die roll and starts us off. Matt plays a Wooded Foothills, cracking it to find a shock and passing. Mike plays a Temple of Epiphany, scrying 1 and bottoming the card. Trevor plays a tap Canyon Slough and passes. I play a tap Temple of Silence and I bottom the scryed card. Matt plays a Polluted Delta, cracking it and finding another shockland, passing to Mike. Mike plays a tap Steam Vents, passing to Trevor. Trevor plays a Woodland Cemetery and he casts Farseek, going to find a land while he passes to me. I play a Foreboding Ruins untapped as I reveal a swamp from my hand. I then pay 2 to cast Talisman of Indulgence and I pass to Matt. Matt plays a Bloodstained Mire, keeping the pain train rolling and cracking it, taking 1 to go and find a Blood Crypt, taking another 2 to have it come in untapped. He then casts an Urza's Incubator, naming dragons, and passes. Mike plays a tapped Irrigated Farmland, and passes. Trevor plays a Rites of Flourishing in his main phase, and with it on the field, drops a Savage Land which comes in tapped, and his own Foreboding Ruins, passing to me. I draw 2 and play 2 Swamps. I then cast a Phyrexian Arena, and I pass to Matt. Matt plays an Overgrown Tomb, taking 2 to have it come in untapped. He then plays a Plains, and out comes a turn 4 Scion. Mike plays a Command Tower and a Cinderglade, and casts his General. We then move to his end step, and Mike draws a card. Mike's opponents then each have to choose, and Matt and I play a land, while Trevor draws a card. Trevor draws his 2, and he plays a Luxury Suites and a Ghost Quarters land for turn. He drops a Scour Tribe Elder, and out comes Vial Smasher as he passes to me. I draw 3 cards for my turn, and I lose 1 life to the Arena trigger. I play Graven Cairns and a Reliquary Tower as my lands for turn, and I cast Tymna, and then my copy of Vial Smasher. Matt plays an island, then a mountain for his lands for turn, and he activates Scion in his main phase. He puts a copy of the Balefire Dragon into his graveyard, and the Scion becomes a copy of it until the end of turn. He hits me for 6 commander damage, and unfortunately when he hits, all of my creatures take 6 damage, and my board gets wiped. Mike casts One Volley Acid Moss in his main phase, and he blows up my Reliquary Tower, and goes to find a forest card. Trevor decides to reverberate the spell as well, but at least he has the decency to blow up one of Mike's lands. He rolls for Vial Smasher's trigger, and naturally, I take the 2. Trevor also sacrifices the Elder to go and find a basic and save some time. We then move to Mike's end of turn, and Kynaios and Tiro trigger, with basically everyone just drawing a card. Trevor plays a Bojuka Bog for his turn, which comes in tapped, and he targets Matt. He then plays a Command Tower. We then see what I can only imagine is one of Trevor's favorite spells in the deck, where spheres hit the stack and target Matt. Trevor rolls for the Vial Smasher trigger, and I take 8. Matt also responds to the spell, and he exiles Vial Smasher with a Path to Exile. Trevor goes to find a basic, and then passes to me. I draw 3 cards on my turn, and I lose 1 life to the Arena trigger. I play a Caves of Koilos for my land for turn, and I cast an Orzhov Signet. Sadly, all I can do after that is cast a Primal Amulet, and I pass to Matt. Responding to the end of my turn, Matt activates Scion, and then responds to the first activation and activates it again. He goes through his library and grabs a Molten Steel Dragon, and then a Lathless Dragon Queen, and he puts them both into his graveyard. We then pass to Trevor's controlled Matt's turn. Trevor untaps for Matt and draws 2. He plays a Steam Vents untapped, taking 2, followed by a Flooded Strand. Trevor then cracks the Flooded Strand to go and find a land while also snooping through Matt's library. He finds a Plains and puts it onto the field, and then activates Sion's ability 4 times. He finds and bins Dragonlord Dromoka, Scourge of Valkus, Nicol Bolas, and finishes with Sion becoming a copy of Savage Ventmaw. Trevor then swings the Savage Ventmaw Sion at Mike for 4 commander damage, and he gains 3 green and 3 red mana. In Matt's second main phase, Trevor then casts Patriarch's Bidding, naming dragons for Matt and Snake for himself. He brings in Matt's 5 dragons from the graveyard, and the triggers of Lathis and the Scourge go in the stack. Trevor then has more than enough triggers from the Scourge to kill Mike and I, and he's able to pay all of Matt's remaining life into the Molten Steel's Phyrexian mana ability, effectively killing 3 players and not even using his own deck. The second game finds us at Platinum Star Games, and I'm playing my old Locust God deck, keeping Serum Visions, Island, Remand, Desolate Lighthouse, Laboratory Maniac, Tormenting Voice, and Mindstone. Eric is playing his Bruse-Kangee and Kydele deck, keeping Thought Reflection, City of Brass, Exploration, Wheel of Fortune, Ponder, and Brain Geyser. Eric's brother Steve is playing Kangee, keeping a Glacial Fortress, 2 Islands, Rhystic Study, Crookclaw Elder, Stifle, and Felwar Stone. Lastly, John is playing his Firesong and Sunspeaker deck, keeping a Battlefield Forge, 2 Plains, Inferno, 2 Mountains, and Corehaven. I win the die roll, and I start us off. I play a Wandering Fumarole, tapped, and I pass to Eric. Eric plays a Taiga, and he casts Exploration. He then drops a City of Brass, tapping it and taking 1 to cast a Ponder. Steve plays a tapped Glacial Fortress, and passes to John. John plays a Mountain, passing. I play an Island, and I cast Mindstone before passing to Eric. Eric plays a Scalding Tarn as his land for turn, and he casts Mana Crypt. He then casts Kydele, taking 1 from the City of Brass, and he passes. Steve plays a Reliquary Tower, and he casts a Felwar Stone, passing. At the end of turn, Eric cracks his Scalding Tarn to find a Steam Vents, and we move to John's turn. John plays a Plains, passing to me. I play an Izzet Signet in my main phase, and I play a tap Myriad Landscape. I then cast Serum Visions, drawing and scrying 2. Eric flips for his Crypt trigger, failing and taking 3. He plays a Sulphur Falls, and he casts a Wheel of Fortune. We all discard our hands and draw a fresh 7. Eric keeps track of the cards he's drawn with the handy little die above Kydele. He then plays a Rugged Prairie as his second land for turn, and tapping Kydele for 8 mana, casts a Felwar Stone. Eric then casts Argent the Shifting Flame, and using the rest of his mana, brings out Bruse-Kangee. He then wheels his hand with Argent's trigger, and we move to Steve's turn. Steve plays a Plains, and he casts a Commander Esha in his main phase, passing to John once it resolves. John plays a Mountain, and he passes. I play a Command Tower, and I pass to Eric. Eric flips again for his Crypt trigger, failing once more and taking 3. He plays a Flooded Strand for his land for turn, and casts Mnemonic Wall. John responds to the spell with Aurelia's Fury for 1, targeting Kydele. Eric responds to this by tapping his commander for 1 mana, and then she's dealt 1 and tapped because of the Fury. With Argent's trigger still in the stack for Eric casting a spell, I use Cryptic Command to counter the wall, and I tap all of his creatures. Eric takes another 1 by cracking his Flooded Strand and going to find a Tundra. Eric then bottoms his hand and draws a fresh new one of the same size. He then casts Oblation, targeting his own Exploration, and he bottoms his hand once more, drawing that many again. He then shuffles the enchantment into his library and draws 2. Eric then passes to Steve. Steve draws and plays an Unclaimed Territory, naming birds. He casts an Azorius Cluzone, followed by a Thrumming Bird. Moving to combat, Steve hits Eric for 2 and passes to John. John plays a Tap Needle Spires and passes. I draw and I play a Mountain, casting the Locust God. I then cast a Winds of Change to make some insects and hopefully disrupt Eric's hand a little bit. I get 5 Locust God triggers, making 5 insect tokens, and with them hitting the field, I move to combat and I hit Eric for 5. Eric flips again for his crypt trigger, failing gloriously and taking another 3. He plays a command tower and casts Birds of Paradise, bottoming his hand and drawing a new one. We then see a Reforge the Soul, which has Eric bottoming his hand again, then drawing a new one, before we then discard that hand and draw a fresh 7. Eric then taps his commander for 13 colorless mana, and a Paradox Engine hits the stack. He does the Argent trigger again, and this time casts Exploration, which he'd redrawn, and untaps all of his non-land permanents, and he then bottoms his hand again, drawing that many. We then see him re-tapping his commander for just an absurd amount of colorless, and he casts a Final Fortune. Eric then bottoms that hand, and he draws a new one. This also once again untaps his commander, who immediately gets re-tapped, and Eric casts Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. He bottoms his hand, draws a new one, and then draws 4 from Kozilek's on-cast trigger. Oh, and don't forget he gets to untap everything non-land. Eric then taps Kydele once more, and we see the other Kozilek hit the stack this time, and he does the whole bottom, draw, untap thing again. Eric then casts a 1000-Year Elixir and moves through the whole process again. He's now able to tap his Birds of Paradise because of the Elixir, and he casts Kadama's Reach, making more colorless and untapping his stuff, and then bottoms his hand and drawing a new one. He does the same once more, casting a Return to Dust, and exiles my Mind Stone and sees Felwar Stone. Eric then casts an Endless One, using a bunch of his colorless mana to make it however big this many dice is, and he finally moves to combat. He hits Steve with Argent and Bruse Tarl, with Bruse Tarl's trigger going on Argent. He then moves to his first extra turn, which may potentially be his last. Eric draws for turn, and he plays a Verdant Catacomb, remembering to flip for his crypt trigger after this. He finally calls heads, and manages to avoid 3. He then casts a Magus of the Wheel, but with no cards in hand, has nothing to bottom, and then draw. Eric then cracks the Magus, and we all discard our hand and draw 7. One of those cards is Umbral Mantle, and he does his thing once more. Eric then equips the mantle onto Kydele and is able to make infinite colorless, and he uses said infinite mana to kill the table with a Rolling Thunder. Game review time. So, like always, Rites of Flourishing certainly ramps the game up to about 11. I know some people have problems with cards that take other people's turns, but I think this was a particularly interesting way for Trevor to win. Trevor really had no way of knowing that Matt had a Patriarch's Bidding in his hand when he took his next turn, and although it may have taken some time, it was fun to see him win with Matt's deck in the end. Therefore, I actually think there are 2 winners for this game, both Matt and Trevor, since Matt's deck won, and Trevor was the one piloting it. Game 2 was just kinda special. Eric unfortunately was able to get a lot of fast mana out early on, and once he had the Paradox Engine going with Kydele out, it was basically GG. I probably wouldn't have minded all the wheels out had I had my Locust cut out at that point, but unfortunately, because as I said, Eric had so much fast mana early on, unfortunately no one was really able to respond to it, and we kept losing our hands and our answers as a result. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/MTGMudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/MTGMudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.